I appreciate that Jesus did not have the best relationship with his hometown. I didn't myself. Sorry, Mom and Dad. Buffalo, Minnesota was a pleasant enough place to grow up, peaceful, nice lakes, but it also felt very small and very limiting. It made me feel limited in who I could be, limited in what I felt allowed to say. Like Jesus, I was known primarily by my parents, by who my parents were, not by myself. People decided how they felt about me by how they felt about my mom and dad. But in a weird reversal, they would also decide how they felt about my mom and dad by how they judged my actions and character. I felt at once invisible and also oppressively watched. Every opportunity for accomplishment felt like a chance to bring honor or shame upon my family. Honor if I succeeded, or shame if I failed in any way. Every decision about how much of myself to share with the people of my hometown was governed by that balance of honor and shame. Would being myself in a particular moment at school, at church, at Target, at a friend's house, bring honor upon my family, or would it bring shame? Eventually, the stress and anxiety of this pressure convinced me to believe that who I am is essentially dangerous, threatening. Believe that my personality, myself, my body, was a threat to my family's well-being and stability because my hometown demanded that I fit in and be normal. And as I think that all of you can probably guess, I was terrible at fitting in, and I was even worse at being normal. So I hid my... Oh, thank you, Gary. Yeah. So I hid myself away. I silenced myself. I made myself quiet and small, unheard except by those closest to me. And in doing so, I silenced the voice of God that dwelt within me with a message that only I could preach. Today, I know that this is the narrative of many queer people who, like me, grew up in communities that could not understand them, or many other people who grew up in communities that could not understand them, and so they feared them, threatened them, made them feel like they had to hide themselves in order to survive, silencing their unique witness to God for the sake of preserving tradition. And honestly, even though I'm here today, I still feel quite uncomfortable preaching because of the many years I spent in my hometown silencing myself with the fear that who I was and what I had to say was dangerous. And so again, it gives me comfort to know that Jesus was also afraid of his hometown. Jesus also made himself small until he felt ready to shine. The people of his hometown, Nazareth, as you saw or heard in our reading, in our gospel today, are surprised to hear him preach this liberating message that God is with them and fulfilling the promises of freedom, restoration, and transformation right now. He didn't grow up preaching that message. He didn't go around saying that when he was a kid. He waited until he felt ready to deliver his unique God-given message, literally God-given message, to his own people, because he knew that it would make him an enemy of his hometown. Jesus grew up with a keen awareness of the injustice present within his own people, became familiar with their prejudice and the oppression of their traditions. He had a message to proclaim that called people to transform, to join in God's joyful work of liberating and nourishing all people, but he had to wait until he was an adult, until he could trust that the message he was called to preach, that had been living inside of him from the moment of his birth, could erupt out of him in a moment of cathartic justice and trust that it would be heard. He waited a while, a long, long while, to announce God's immediate presence to an astonished world, and even still, he found resistance. So let's not wait anymore. Part of the New Life Rising service is a time of conversation where we don't just listen to one interpretation, we hear each other and share about how we respond to our wonderful sacred texts. So I would like you to turn to a neighbor, not quite yet, I'll let you know when. Perhaps someone that you know, or perhaps someone new to you. I'm going to ask you to be a little bit vulnerable, so I want you to keep yourselves safe. Do what is safe for you. But also make sure that everyone has a partner. Pay attention to those who are not as able to move around. Make sure that kids are attended to as well. So now, go ahead, find a neighbor, and introduce yourselves. This is a person you're going to be sharing a little bit with about your reflections on this gospel text. All right. Now, I would like you all to raise a hand of pledge, and repeat after me. Only Pastor Melissa got that right. We have a lot of kids in here. Come on, up your sass. Repeat after me. Thank you. Fair enough. I promise to hold what you share in trust and confidence, and will not share it without your permission. Yay! All right, that was all. Now, with your neighbor, with your new neighbor, I invite you to explore this question. What message are you nervous to share with your community, with your people? Maybe your community is your school, maybe it's a workplace, maybe it's with your friends, maybe it's this church. But what do you wish that you could say to your people that feels scary to say? What do you think they need to hear but are not willing to hear? What do you think needs to be changed but you're nervous to bring it up? Go ahead and take a little time to reflect. But then I want each of you to share, make sure each person gets a chance to share what message you wish you could share with your community. Go ahead and take a little time now. Thank you for joining in an experiment with me. Thank you for diving into the discomfort of sharing. And yet, I think it is important because I want to encourage you to preach. Preach as much as possible, and do not let the pressures of your place, of your hometown, of your work, of your community, of your people limit what you have to share. Limit your courage to proclaim the unique God-given message that dwells within you. There is no shame in taking the space that you need for safety. If you need to hide, it is okay to hide, but remember that you have a fiery message from God that you were created to share, to bring transformation to this world and to this community. And to this church, I will say that we must be ready to receive these messages of change, these witnesses to God's arrival in unexpected and unanticipated ways. We must let go of phrases like, "We're not ready for that. We can't make that change." Or the dreaded, "That's too much for us." Because I guarantee you those words just communicate "you're too much for us" to a person who needs their message to be received. All these words tell someone expressing their sincerity is that they and their unique witness are not welcome here. And sure enough, that's what happened to Jesus' hometown, to the people of Nazareth who could not receive this new message of liberation from the child they helped raise. They couldn't accept the transformation that he brought to their community, the change of an endlessly expansive divine love. And drawing from this precedent, I would guess that many of us have a message of change we would like to express, but fear that we cannot. But know this: as long as your hope for change is rooted in the liberation of all people and all bodies, so that all may know the freedom that comes from being your God-given self without any limitations, then Jesus has accomplished the foundations of your message of change through his life of love, his death that frees us from death, and his resurrection that leads us to new life. God is with you as you seek to bring justice, to bring change and transformation, to bring your whole self into the world. Jesus is with you. The Holy Spirit is with you. God is with you as you deliver your message of liberation wherever you go in this world, in your hometown or far beyond. And may we, the church together, be prepared to receive you and your message for the beautiful, limitless gift of God that you are.